In 2025, Tesla's sales didn't just slow, they shrank in a market that kept expanding. Global deliveries for the first quarter fell 13% year-over-year to about 337,000 vehicles, the lowest since 2022. Major European markets, including Norway and Germany, reported steep double-digit drops, even as overall EV demand grew nearly 38% worldwide. Meanwhile, BYD has moved from rival to clear global leader, gaining share in regions where Tesla once dominated. And while sales slid, Tesla's board approved a $29 billion restricted stock award for Elon Musk, followed only months later by a proposal for a far larger compensation plan pegged at potentially $1 trillion. Falling numbers, rising rewards. We'll show how that disconnect could cost ordinary investors, and why starting with the sales figures matters most. The numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie. Tesla's 2025 sales record has revealed a decline that can't be waved away as temporary. In Q1, the company delivered 336,681 cars, down sharply from 495,570 in Q4 of 2024. By Q2, Tesla built 410,244 vehicles, but delivered only 384,122, again, fewer than the same quarter a year earlier. These numbers are out of step with the rest of the EV industry, which is posting broad growth across major markets. If demand rises while one company shrinks, that points less to external conditions and more to internal shortcomings. Europe illustrates this most clearly. Some markets have reported collapses as dramatic as 50 to 80% in individual months, while the region overall shows several consecutive months of losses for Tesla. According to ACA data, Tesla's EU market share in the first half of 2025 fell to around 1.3%, down from more than 2% a year earlier. Registrations in Germany, France, and Sweden each show consistent double-digit declines, figures that undercut the idea of short-term swings. EV sales overall in Europe are growing, yet Tesla's deliveries are sliding. The contrast reveals that buyers aren't abandoning electric vehicles, they are simply choosing other brands. The pattern isn't confined to Europe. In China, Tesla's second-largest market, sales have now posted 9 straight months of year-over-year declines, with July showing an 8.4% drop. The refreshed Model Y hasn't reversed that trend, and rivals such as Geely are setting new sales records with affordable hatchbacks. Meanwhile, in the US, where Tesla has long been strongest, registration data indicates actual declines closer to 15% in Q1 rather than the 8.6% Tesla's reporting first suggested. In California, a state that still accounts for nearly 40% of Tesla's US volume, deliveries in Q2 fell 21% year-over-year. These shifts show the downturn isn't regional, it's global. This consistency is what makes the results so telling. It isn't a blip caused by one measurement period, but a continuing pattern. Sales are down in Europe, down in China, and down in the United States, even as overall EV penetration grows in each market. The sequence from Q4 2024 to Q1 2025 to Q2 2025 provides a concrete timeline of contraction. In a normal cycle, you might expect production and deliveries to fluctuate with model launches or seasonal trends. But here the line only points downward. That suggests the issue lies with Tesla's competitiveness, not an industry-wide slowdown. So who is winning? The largest gains have come from BYD. In the first half of 2025, it delivered nearly 1.9 million plug-in vehicles worldwide, a 33% increase year-over-year and almost double Tesla's output. Its market share has grown to nearly 20% of the global EV market. The company is achieving this expansion despite 100% tariffs locking it out of the United States. Instead, it has turned its attention to Europe, Latin America, and smaller Asian markets, where its low-cost, feature-packed models are drawing strong demand. That achievement is a direct mirror of Tesla's retreat. The contrast highlights an execution problem. European regulators have applied tariffs and scrutiny to BYD, yet its volume continues to grow across Germany, the UK, and southern European countries. Latin America, where EV adoption is still early, has become a fresh area of expansion for BYD, while Tesla's higher price points make less sense in emerging markets. Consumers there value practicality, affordability, and range, not status branding imported from California or Oslo. In other words, electric cars are no longer a luxury aspiration. They're an everyday purchase, and Tesla is not positioned in that space. The result is erosion of Tesla's core models. The Model 3 and Model Y, still the foundation of the lineup, are losing their sheen. In 2018, range and a clean design were enough to dominate. In 2025, competitors match or exceed Tesla on range, while offering upgraded interiors, software, and features as standard. March sales of the Model Y hit about 89,000 units, but that figure was almost 25% lower year-over-year despite being the top-selling BEV globally in Q1. The symbolic victory of number one model means less when the trend line is still negative. Defenders frame this as a lull before Tesla's next lineup refresh. But the delivery timeline suggests otherwise. Decline has shown up across back-to-back quarters, in multiple global regions, while rivals are not only holding steady but expanding. That fits the profile of a structural problem. Demand is being redirected to other brands, not withheld out of broader fatigue with EVs. When Volkswagen, Hyundai, BYD, and Stellantis are ramping up deliveries at the same time Tesla is cutting back, it's difficult to argue the company is simply between product cycles. Timing is a serious liability. Developing, validating, and scaling new models takes years. BYD is rolling out multiple options this calendar year, while Tesla's schedule for major product introductions is further out. Each quarter that Tesla contracts gives its competitors more room to entrench themselves. Once market share is ceded, regaining it is costly and slow. For Tesla, the risk is that refreshes arrive late to a segment where rivals already have recognized staying power. The most symbolic blow remains Europe. Norway, once Tesla's crown jewel of early adoption, now reads like a cautionary tale. Tesla achieved cultural dominance there first, proof that electrics could displace combustion. Watching registration data crater in one of its most emblematic markets is more than a statistical dip. It signals that Tesla no longer embodies inevitability. In Germany and France, two automotive powerhouses, declines weigh heavier because Tesla isn't simply fighting for customers. It is struggling against national champions who are leveraging established dealer networks and increasingly competitive EV technology. Put against this backdrop, the explanations once common, chip shortages, shipping bottlenecks, raw material inflation, sound less convincing. Supply chains are steadier in 2025, and EV sales outside Tesla prove that demand remains strong. When a company sees sharp contraction, while nearly all of its rivals are scaling upward, investors and buyers alike recognize the slump as unique. Tesla's reversal is not industry-driven. It is brand-specific. Where does that leave the broader story? At the point where shrinking sales converge with expanding competition. For years, Tesla was synonymous with the concept of an EV itself, the one name that defined the category. Now, the numbers show it is one of many options rather than the default choice, and increasingly not the favored one. This brings us to the harder question underneath the figures. If global demand is rising and Tesla is losing share across Europe, China, and the US, then the problem isn't consumer disinterest in electrification. It's Tesla's inability to hold a lead in a field it once defined. And that sets up the next challenge. If Tesla is fading, who is moving past it? Competitors overtake without looking back. Competitors overtake without looking back. While Tesla struggles to hold ground, rivals are not waiting. They are expanding, scaling, and redefining electric mobility at the very moment Tesla appears stuck. The clearest evidence comes from the hard numbers. In the first half of 2025, BYD delivered about 1.897 million plug-in vehicles worldwide, nearly triple Tesla's 719,000 over the same period. That gap tells the entire story. This isn't about a subtle shift in rank, it's a wholesale change in leadership. BYD's rise has very little to do with futuristic promises. Instead, it's built on fundamentals: vertical integration, relentless cost control, and a willingness to chase volume rather than exclusivity. BYD makes its own batteries, manages its own supply chain, and even operates its own shipping fleet. That allows it to undercut Tesla by more than 30% in some price brackets, while still packing in features that matter to families: longer ranges, big infotainment screens, competitive safety ratings. And crucially, it achieved this momentum even without meaningful sales in the United States, where tariffs keep its cars uncompetitive. Growth in China, Europe, Latin America, and Southeast Asia was enough to propel it past Tesla at a scale that can't be ignored. What makes this shift more striking is the breadth of BYD's success. It's not just the battery electric market where Tesla plays, but also plug-in hybrids. In the first quarter of 2025, BYD owned 8 of the top 10 PHEV spots globally, with the Song Plus alone selling over 78,000 units in 3 months. That kind of dominance in multiple subsegments shows how wide the moat has become. Where Tesla ships 2 core volume models, the Model 3 and Model Y, which together still make up about 95% of its global deliveries, BYD floods the market with dozens of variations tailored to regional demand. That strategic spread means it can compete at every level from entry city runabouts to high-volume family SUVs. Volkswagen represents a different kind of challenge. Its advantage is less about price and more about scale. In Europe, Volkswagen's ID series has become a credible, mass-market family of EVs, backed by a legacy dealer and service network that Tesla cannot match. Sales data confirms that Volkswagen is building consistent volume across multiple markets with steady output, while Tesla's sales in Europe are shrinking. European customers familiar with Volkswagen's reliability now see EVs from a trusted brand that deliver on fundamentals. Decent range, accessible pricing tiers, and after-sales support in every major city. That makes Volkswagen more than just another competitor. It is a structural force in Europe that Tesla has to answer, but hasn't. Hyundai and Kia expose another weakness. Once regarded as budget-conscious brands, they have used the EV transition to reinvent themselves. The Hyundai Ioniq models and Kia EV6, for instance, deliver charging speeds that outpace Tesla's, interior comforts that appeal to mainstream buyers, and warranties that reduce long-term ownership risk. This mix of quality and reassurance resonates with customers comparing their first EV purchases. The fact that Hyundai and Kia have closed the technology gap so rapidly undermines the idea that Tesla still holds a unique edge in engineering. Instead, buyers see 2 Korean brands offering cars that do everything Tesla can at competitive prices, while adding traditional auto industry strengths Tesla lacks. Together, this trio, BYD, Volkswagen, Hyundai/Kia, demonstrates the squeeze Tesla faces from different directions. BYD overwhelms on price and variety, Volkswagen exploits institutional strength in Europe, and Hyundai/Kia attract middle-market consumers with accessible, polished products. No single player is aiming to replicate Tesla's old position. Instead, each is stacking strengths in categories where Tesla is weak. The combined result is that Tesla has lost the commanding ground it once stood on. The psychological impact matters too. For over a decade, Tesla was seen not only as a carmaker, but as the symbol of the EV future. Being outsold by BYD and matched or bypassed by legacy and Korean rivals erodes that aura of inevitability. Consumers once assumed Tesla was the default EV choice. Today, they see it as one option among many, and increasingly not the most practical one. That narrative shift matters in regions like Europe and China, where EV adoption is fast becoming mainstream and purchase decisions are pragmatic rather than aspirational. Even geography doesn't provide insulation anymore. Regions once considered Tesla-safe zones now show cracks. In Europe, where generous subsidies created fertile ground for Tesla early on, brands like BYD and Volkswagen are cutting into its share month after month. In Latin America, where uptake is still in the early stages, BYD is establishing dominance by targeting families with affordable entry-level EVs. In the United States, Tesla retains presence but faces pressure from Ford, Rivian, and a slew of new entrants. The supposed mode of pioneering brand recognition has ceased to matter against competitors that simply offer newer, better, or more affordable cars. And the imbalance extends beyond volume. Tesla's 2-pillar strategy around the Model 3 and Model Y, once a strength, now locks it into an aging product lineup. Rivals roll out refreshed vehicles and new designs every year. Tesla is still extracting sales from platforms introduced half a decade ago. That mismatch accelerates perception of stagnation. Statements about upcoming products, Cybertruck, Semi, Robotaxis, haven't translated into meaningful deliveries at scale. Whereas competitors let new models speak directly in the showroom, Tesla still leans heavily on promises yet to materialize. In practice, the outcome is decisive. Tesla remains prominent on paper, but in reality, the market has moved past it. BYD towers ahead in volume. Volkswagen provides rooted competition in Europe, and Hyundai/Kia prove that fast, consumer-friendly pivots work. Tesla is being overtaken not because electric demand has faltered, but because others have been faster, broader, and more reliable in execution. That is the unmistakable trajectory of the sales data, region after region. This context is important because it shapes how investors and the public view Tesla's leadership decisions. If the product story was still one of growth, investor tolerance for setbacks might remain high. But as competitors surpass Tesla across multiple benchmarks, the spotlight inevitably shifts to how Tesla is being managed. And that takes us to the striking contrast at the center of its recent announcements. While the numbers point down, inside the boardroom, a very different set of decisions is being made. The endless pay parade. The endless pay parade. In mid-2025, as Tesla reported sliding deliveries in its largest markets, the board authorized one of the most striking pay awards in corporate history. First came an interim restricted stock grant, 96 million shares, valued at roughly $29 billion. This was described in proxy filings as a way to replace the controversial 2018 package that had been struck down by the Delaware courts. Even framed as a replacement, the optics were extraordinary. Sales were softening, disputes over autopilot safety were intensifying, and yet Tesla's directors signed off on billions in equity for a CEO already holding the largest personal stake in the company. Within weeks, the conversation took an even more dramatic turn. In September, the board went beyond the interim grant and proposed what it called the 2025 CEO Performance Award. This package, if fully earned, could reach an unprecedented $1 trillion, making it the largest executive pay plan ever contemplated. The structure includes 12 tranches of stock tied to aggressive market capitalization and operational milestones. Market cap thresholds begin at $2 trillion and scale up to $8.5 trillion. Operational goals include producing 20 million vehicles annually, reaching 10 million active full self-driving subscriptions, delivering 1 million humanoid robots, and operating 1 million commercial Robotaxis. Only if all those conditions are eventually met would Musk receive the full award. Yet even at partial vesting, the dilution effect and voting implications would be immense. The scale becomes easier to grasp with a direct comparison. The award Musk received in 2018, valued at $56 billion, was at the time considered outsized. This new proposal is 18 times larger. To put the number in perspective, the $1 trillion ceiling is nearly equal to Tesla's entire market capitalization in 2025. Even if only some tranches vest, the resulting equity adds both stock-based dilution and enhanced voting power. In fact, the arrangement includes a special voting agreement. Once Musk earns the right to a tranche, he can vote those shares before they fully vest. That change accelerates his influence, potentially drawing him closer to his stated goal of controlling 25% of Tesla's voting power far sooner than exercising the shares outright. For investors, such an arrangement is more than symbolic. Dilution places downward pressure on existing holders, and the additional voting rights shift balance in corporate governance. Musk already has powerful influence over Tesla's strategy. This plan would cement his dominance at a scale rarely seen in publicly traded firms. Critics have pointed out that Musk, as Tesla's largest shareholder, already has ample incentive to increase company value. Granting trillions more in potential equity raises questions about necessity, especially when growth targets that supported past valuations no longer align with Tesla's current sales performance. The Columbia Business School examined the mechanics of reinstating the earlier 2018 award and estimated Tesla would need to record an accounting charge of between $25 and $51 billion. That charge, large enough to overwhelm Tesla's annual earnings on paper, indicates the financial strain such pay structures can place on reported results. Layering a new $1 trillion program on top of a $29 billion grant only amplifies the sense of imbalance. It is precisely this type of accounting footprint that rattles confidence among shareholders seeking clean signals of corporate health. Supporters argue the proposed award is tied to extreme operational hurdles, one so demanding that success would validate the incentives retroactively. The board emphasizes that Tesla's rivals do not face thresholds like producing 1 million commercial Robotaxis. According to the Compensation Committee, normal benchmarking to peer CEOs would be irrelevant, because no other chief executive is being tasked with such transformative goals. Chair Robin Denholm went further, suggesting that Musk's involvement in ventures outside Tesla, from spaceflight to artificial intelligence, ultimately benefits the company, energizing his leadership. To her and other directors, spreading Musk's creative energy across industries strengthens rather than distracts from Tesla. Skeptics see a different picture. The plan does not dictate how much of Musk's time must be spent directly on Tesla. That omission leaves open the risk that Tesla shareholders finance a historic compensation program while their CEO spreads attention among multiple ventures in rockets, tunneling, and social media. Concerns extend beyond attention span into governance itself. If Musk continues shifting his public focus, investors may wonder whether Tesla has a practical succession strategy at all, despite the plan requiring a formal succession outline for final tranches to vest. For shareholders, the juxtaposition of pay against performance is unavoidable. Deliveries fell nearly 30% year-over-year in the first quarter of 2025, U.S. registrations slipped by double digits, and Tesla lost share to incumbents in Europe and China. Few boardrooms would respond to such numbers with promotions of gigantic new awards. Yet Tesla's board has argued that future-focused goals justify continuing to tie ever larger sums to Musk's involvement. The risk for investors is whether the future metrics remain perpetually deferred, while present challenges, like missed production targets or shrinking market share, erode value today. Inside the company, the symbolism filters downward. Employees on production lines or in service centers know when factories miss output goals and when product launches slip further into the calendar. Those employees live with recalls, overtime scheduling, and resource shortfalls. Seeing tens of billions delivered to the CEO while those day-to-day frustrations pile up can create a sense that accountability only flows one way. That perception matters. It establishes morale, culture, and faith that leadership rides the same currents as staff. If incentives detach entirely from current results, the message becomes one of hierarchy rather than shared mission. From an investor's standpoint, awards at this scale demand more than casual acceptance. They change the fundamental nature of the stock. Dilution reshapes earnings per share. Additional voting rights alter corporate balance. And the narrative itself, pay that grows while performance shrinks, creates reputational shock that can affect analyst coverage and fund allocation. If you own Tesla, this isn't an abstract debate about one executive. It's about how your stake in the company may evolve in value and power as these new tranches unfold. Still, the essential contradiction remains. A company facing its toughest competitive environment in years chooses to expand executive rewards as if conditions were booming. Investors who once excused lavish incentives because they believed Tesla led the EV revolution must now do the math with rivals surging past and core products aging. Rhetoric about future Robotaxis does little to counter the practical effect of reporting lower deliveries, shrinking share, and increasing recalls. In that context, massive awards appear less like bold vision and more like detachment from operational reality. And that operational reality is where the real pressure shows. Tesla may argue that wealth transfers motivate future innovation, but factories and assembly lines must deliver cars here and now. With rivals outproducing and underpricing Tesla across multiple regions, the effect of these pay packages is magnified. As shareholders weigh both dilution and direction, what matters most is whether Tesla can execute at the ground level. Because if the company stumbles there, no amount of promised milestones or compensation schemes can alter the trajectory. How well Tesla's core machines are running has become the most pressing question. Manufacturing bottlenecks. Tesla's identity as a manufacturer once rested on a singular claim. Its factories embodied the future. The vision was unmistakable: glass-walled gigaplants filled with robotic arms, building cars faster and cheaper than traditional automakers could imagine. Yet by 2025, that promise looks cracked. Instead of flawless automation, Tesla is confronting bottlenecks, labor shortages, and quality issues that drag output below projections and inflate per-unit costs. The Berlin Gigafactory, unveiled as Tesla's European stronghold, illustrates the strain. Targeted to ramp annual production into the hundreds of thousands, Berlin is still underperforming. Worker recruitment stalled amid high turnover, with employees citing grueling schedules and safety concerns. Local unions and regulators pushed back harder than Tesla expected, and production lines struggled to scale. The effect is simple. Tesla's most important European facility is behind schedule, leaving the company unable to seize regional demand as intended. In a market where Volkswagen and BMW are surging forward, Tesla's delays hand rivals valuable breathing space. Tesla's reliance on centralized supply flows adds another complication. Berlin imports a large share of its critical components, leaving it exposed when logistics stumble. Missing shipments don't merely pause a single step, they ripple across entire lines. By comparison, BYD avoids many of these pitfalls. Its vertical integration extends from blade battery production to in-house electronics and assembly, cutting outside dependence and keeping costs stable. In practice, that means BYD can recover from shocks quickly while Tesla endures global shipping delays that slow European deliveries to a trickle. Tesla's global production numbers make this imbalance visible. In Q1 2025, Tesla produced 362,615 vehicles, a 16% decline year-over-year. A stark miss for a company whose stated goal is 2.07 million units this year. That target already represents modest growth on the 1.77 million produced in 2024, yet the first half of 2025 suggests the company may fall short. Even when output rises, it has failed to keep pace with delivery figures, fueling higher inventory and weakening cash generation. It's a reversal of Tesla's former ability to extract margins through what it called lean manufacturing. Recalls compound the problem. The most public example is the Cybertruck. Launched with fanfare, it has been dogged by early breakdowns, software glitches, and a high-profile recall that forced Tesla to halt and correct vehicles already distributed. The effect was immediate. Depreciation rates soared, resale values plunged, and confidence in the vehicle evaporated. In manufacturing terms, recalls drain the very efficiency Tesla depends on, requiring rework and eating up both time and capital. Combined with slower Model Y sales in China and Europe, these setbacks mean Tesla's factories are less an asset and more a source of recurring cost overruns. Critics once assumed legacy automakers lacked the daring to experiment at scale. Yet those same carmakers now showcase the stability that comes from institutional experience. Volkswagen's German operations, for example, continue producing EVs with negotiated labor agreements and robust supplier networks. They are hardly immune to delays, but rarely do bottlenecks throw entire production schedules into question. Tesla's opposite approach, prioritizing speed, risk, and high automation, creates fragility. A single shortage in labor or parts sends output tumbling, where competitors manage to adapt. Tesla's narrow lineup magnifies this fragility. Gigafactories depend heavily on producing Model 3s and Model Ys. If demand falters, overhead remains fixed. Lower throughput drives per unit costs higher, eroding competitiveness. BYD, on the other hand, insulates itself by producing dozens of models across categories from compact runabouts to luxury sedans. A dip in one line is offset by growth in another. For Tesla, concentration multiplies every stumble in its production system. Even the automation-first philosophy, once Tesla's crown jewel, now looks overstretched. Robots can handle steel stamping or repetitive welding at speed, but when defects surface or machines fail, recovery demands the kind of adaptive response human labor excels at. Tesla's drive to minimize staffing backfired. When recruitment lagged in Berlin, operations became brittle. Unlike mixed human-robot lines at Hyundai or Kia that pivot quickly, Tesla's fully automated processes stall until fixes are coded and retested. The cost of downtime adds up, and efficiency evaporates. Investors once assumed Tesla's factories granted a structural cost edge. Data now indicates the opposite. Production shortfalls, recall costs, and reliance on imported parts push costs upward even as rivals are driving theirs down. BYD produces vehicles at scale with lower recalls and shorter lead times. Hyundai and Volkswagen use experience and diversified product bases to maintain steady throughput. Tesla, meanwhile, risks losing the very low-cost thesis that justified its pricing power. The Cybertruck story highlights the larger danger. Tesla hoped it would redefine trucks, much as the Model 3 redefined sedans. Instead, recalls and disappointing sales left it hemorrhaging credibility. When a supposed flagship model drags margins instead of lifting them, investor confidence in Tesla's production pipeline weakens. Add falling Model Y share in China and production lags across Europe, and the picture sharpens. the once-vaunted manufacturing edge has dulled. The broader context exposes a strategic miscalculation. Tesla set itself apart by betting everything on factories built for hyperscaled output, with automation at their core. But factories alone cannot insulate against labor exhaustion, regulatory friction, or a limited lineup. Rivals quietly combine scale with resilient logistics and diverse product strategies. BYD's Blade battery illustrates the difference. Owning design and production reduces dependency. Tesla's global hubs lack that flexibility, making bottlenecks harder to resolve. What emerges is a reversal of Tesla's past narrative. Years ago, Tesla showed the world that EV factories could be profitable where legacy rivals bled capital. In 2025, the opposite is true. Tesla carries rising per-unit costs while its competitors' efficiencies compound. Automation without adaptability turned into fragility. Expansion without labor buy-in became turnover. Product concentration translated into risk exposure. Layered together, these forces stripped away Tesla's manufacturing advantage at the very moment it needs cost leadership most. That turn is not abstract. Investors run the math: slower production growth, rising recalls, rising inventories, and diminished margins, and reassess Tesla's positioning. Where Elon Musk once touted the machine that builds the machine as revolutionary, today those machines underscore a slower, costlier, and less flexible company. BYD continues to scale, Volkswagen wields institutional strength, and Hyundai adapts at speed. Tesla, by contrast, wrestles with the very factories that were supposed to guarantee its dominance. And when manufacturing struggles undermine quality and efficiency, the real test shows up beyond the production floor. Customers see the aftereffects in their cars, their service visits, and their ownership experience. That perception shift is where the next chapter in Tesla's story unfolds. Customers are noticing. Customers are noticing. What owners are saying about Tesla in 2025 looks very different from just a few years ago. For a long time, driving one carried a sense of pride. You weren't just buying a car, you were signaling you were part of the future. Today, those same drivers are voicing frustrations that cut through that identity. Instead of highlighting sleek design or software updates, they are complaining about panel misalignments, repair delays, and uneven reliability. The shift is striking. People who once served as Tesla's loudest advocates online are now the ones leading the critique. Independent surveys add weight to these voices. Latana's 2025 consumer sentiment data shows Tesla's perception sliding in major markets, with net sentiment in the US falling to -11% and in Germany dropping to -51%. That's not anecdote. It's tens of millions of people indicating their view of the brand has worsened. At the same time, industry studies show a more complicated picture. J.D. Power's 2025 appeal study, for instance, scored Tesla relatively well in categories like performance and technology experience, even as overall brand satisfaction slipped to 10th place among premium carmakers. The vehicle dependability study tells a similar story. Tesla posted an improved score of 209 pp100, better than its 2023 result of 257, but still below the industry average of 202 and far behind leaders like Lexus at 140. In other words, improvements exist, but not enough to reverse the wider trend of weakening customer loyalty. Much of this frustration stems from service. Tesla relies on a hybrid model of mobile repair vans and centralized service centers rather than broad dealership networks. With the fleet growing, that thin coverage often leaves owners waiting weeks for appointments. Regional reports cite premium connectivity outages in North America and long delays for parts that keep even simple fixes pending. One owner described waiting nearly a month for a door handle replacement. Such bottlenecks feel jarring when compared to competitors like Toyota and Ford, which have thousands of dealer locations ready to handle repairs quickly. The effect is cumulative. Owners accept quirks if fixes are immediate. They lose patience when support involves weeks of downtime. Charging, another area Tesla once owned, no longer feels like an undefeated asset, while the supercharger network remains. Vast, congestion is increasingly common in cities like Los Angeles and Berlin, with drivers reporting lines during evening peaks. In some regions, Southern Europe and Latin America in particular, promised rollouts have slowed, leaving gaps in coverage. What was once a defining advantage is turning into an inconsistent experience. while rivals expand partnerships with governments and private charging operators to provide broader access. Instead of reinforcing Tesla's superiority, the uneven supercharger experience has begun to highlight its limits. Reliability perceptions also weigh heavily. Tesla owners often report advanced features delivering less than advertised. Autopilot and full self-driving, marketed as centerpieces of the Tesla experience, remain glitch-prone. Drivers describe sudden braking on highways or inconsistent lane keeping, undermining trust. Complaints about malfunctioning screens, weatherproofing issues, and trim fitment appear regularly in forums and consumer report surveys. These aren't just occasional one-off issues. They point to a pattern that contrasts starkly with the company's premium price positioning. When a $60,000 car leaves its owner stranded with a locked charging port, the frustration rings louder than it might on an economy car. The erosion of goodwill is no longer confined to isolated stories. Latana's Germany data shows that 27 million people, more than half the country's population, reported a worsening view of the Tesla brand in mid-2025. Sentiment dropped especially among high earners and the highly educated, traditionally demographics Tesla counted on. In the US, about 58 million people, 31% of adults, told surveys their perception had declined in the last month. That slow erosion is subtle, but it matters. It doesn't always show up instantly in sales reports, but when it persists across months and years, it shapes how buyers approach their next purchase. The loyalty gap widens when competitors deliver consistently. BYD, Hyundai, and Volkswagen all emphasize after-sales support as a differentiator. Hyundai pairs its Ioniq and EV lines with long, transferable warranties. Volkswagen leverages its European service footprint for rapid repairs. BYD focuses on affordable parts and broadening dealer coverage across Latin America and Asia. These support systems don't make headlines, but they directly address the main pain points Tesla owners complain about. For families deciding on their first electric car, seamless service often outweighs futuristic dashboards. Used car data reinforces the customer shift. Media reports from Reuters and Motor Trend show that Tesla's resale values are slipping faster than many rival EVs, with trade-ins rising through 2024 and into 2025. What was once an advantage, used Teslas holding their value, has eroded. For buyers weighing the economics of ownership, accelerating depreciation sounds an alarm. Not only are cars harder to maintain, but their equity evaporates faster. That message spreads quickly in second-hand markets, reshaping perceptions of Tesla durability. All of this pressure converges on loyalty. Tesla depended heavily on word-of-mouth marketing for its upward climb. Owners were the sales force, telling friends and family why Tesla was worth it. But in 2025, reviews on Reddit threads or EV forums are just as likely to warn people away as to champion the brand. Word of mouth cuts both ways, and once it turns negative, it can have a compounding effect. When people who previously recommended Tesla now urge caution, credibility unravels far more quickly than ad campaigns can repair. The backdrop isn't limited to service or production. Surveys and media coverage also point to another factor: Elon Musk's high-profile political activity. In the past year, his outspoken involvement in partisan debates in both the US and Europe appears to have dented Tesla's brand sentiment in certain demographics. Latana's survey data in Germany, where sentiment dropped sharply in the aftermath of Musk's political statements, shows a correlation between these controversies and declining consumer interest. For many, the Tesla brand is intertwined with Musk's personal image. Growing political baggage threatens to alienate buyers who simply wanted an innovative EV without ideological associations attached. Tesla's internal ratings echo the uneven results. Service center Net Promoter Scores vary widely between 40 and 60, with complaints concentrated on delivery and maintenance responsiveness. While companies like Lexus or Porsche routinely score in the 70s or higher, Tesla's inconsistent performance leaves owners caught between strong software-driven functionality and disappointing hardware reliability. Combined with recent drops in the J.D. Power APL ranking, it suggests that while Tesla continues to innovate in software, it is losing ground on the basics that underpin long-term loyalty. The consequences of eroding satisfaction go beyond immediate sales numbers. For a carmaker, repeat customers are essential ballast against competition. Toyota, Honda, and Ford rely on decades-long loyalty cycles. Tesla, still relatively new as a mass-market manufacturer, doesn't have that cushion. If early adopters defect instead of repurchasing, sustained decline becomes far more difficult to arrest. A shrinking core customer base undermines the very growth narrative that Tesla's valuation rests upon. And as that loyalty erodes, the gap between perception and reality grows larger. Tesla continues presenting itself as innovative, but customers know when their cars sit in service centers or when features don't function consistently. Each missing part, each glitchy update, and each supercharger line quietly transforms excitement into regret. Those experiences stick longer than any glossy advertising campaign. This raises the larger strategic question: what happens when faith in Tesla's customer experience falters across key markets? Once loyal owners hesitate on repeat purchases, while new buyers weigh competitors that offer fewer frustrations. Without a loyal base to absorb tougher quarters, Tesla risks becoming dependent on major new products to reignite enthusiasm. But those products carry delays and uncertainty of their own. And the longer customers wait, the larger the pressure becomes. It's here that satisfaction intersects directly with Tesla's future pipeline. As enjoyment declines and frustrations mount, many customers say they will wait to see what comes next before reinvesting in the brand. In 2025, their patience is wearing thin. Expectations of bold new vehicles still hang in the air, but promises have begun to outweigh delivery. And the danger for Tesla is that customers won't wait forever. The vanishing product pipeline. Tesla's reputation was built on the belief that the company always had the next breakthrough waiting in its product pipeline. In 2025, that belief looks increasingly fragile. A closer look at actual delivery timelines reveals not a steady flow of innovation, but a pattern of delays, revisions, and scaled-back ambitions. Where investors and customers once saw momentum, they now see gaps, and rivals are capitalizing. The Cybertruck is the most visible example. First unveiled in 2019 with bold promises to enter mass production around 2021, it was supposed to disrupt the lucrative US pickup market. Instead, for years later, Tesla is still struggling to scale output. Production volumes remain far below forecasts, while early units have been plagued by fit and finish problems and recall notices that forced costly fixes. Buyers who placed deposits years ago are still waiting, and each step back erodes not just their patience but wider confidence in Tesla's ability to deliver on schedule. The model that once symbolized Tesla's daring now serves as a reminder of how long ideas can linger before materializing, if they materialize at all. The affordable mass-market vehicle is another broken promise. For years, Tesla hinted at a $25,000 Model 2, a car that would rival budget entries from BYD or Volkswagen. Instead, reports now suggest Tesla has pushed the production launch of its lower-cost Model Y variant, codenamed E41, into late 2025 or even 2026. That delay sidelines a product segment where competitors are moving quickly and where consumer adoption numbers are climbing fastest. The distinction matters. A temporary delay signals execution challenges but keeps hope alive. A delay at this scale, in the single most competitive part of the EV market, risks handing rivals permanent advantage. While BYD floods emerging economies with affordable options today, Tesla's lower-cost alternative is still at least a year or more away. Beyond traditional cars, Tesla has long pointed to autonomy as the company's defining leap forward. The Robotaxi project has been framed as transformative. Fleets of Teslas navigating cities without drivers, replacing traditional car ownership. Yet the milestones keep shifting. Musk said in 2016 that Tesla would demonstrate coast-to-coast autonomy by the following year. In 2019, he predicted Robotaxi service by 2020. Now, in 2025, Tesla's full self-driving system remains classified as Level 2, meaning it requires constant human supervision. Regulators from the California DMV to federal agencies are investigating the claims. Shareholder lawsuits challenge the company's representations, and pilot tests in Austin still involve frequent interventions by safety operators. By contrast, competitors like Waymo and Cruise, while limited, already operate restricted services. Tesla remains in the demo stage after nearly a decade of public assurances. The Tesla Semi tells a similar story. Announced in 2017 with delivery slated for 2019, it has been delayed repeatedly. Some units have trickled out. PepsiCo expects a small batch this year, but full-scale production never matched the rhetoric. Logistics leaders remain eager for alternatives to diesel fleets, but Tesla has ceded first-mover advantage to other manufacturers already introducing commercial EV trucks. Each year of delay pushes Tesla further from relevance in a space where scale and reliability matter more than hype. Then there's the second-generation Roadster. First unveiled in 2017 as a marker of Tesla's technological prowess, it was promised for 2020, then 2021, then 2022. The company now speaks of 2023 or later, contingent on supply chain conditions. But 2025 has arrived without a release. The halo effect has evaporated. Buyers associate the brand less with delivering future design icons and more with pushing aspirational projects just out of reach. Taken across the lineup, the pattern is consistent. Tesla announces early, generates immense attention, then slides deadlines further into the future. By itself, one delay can be excused: global supply shortages, regulatory hurdles, production challenges. Stacked together, the repeated slippage on Cybertruck, affordable EVs, the Semi, the Roadster, and Robotaxi signals something deeper. Tesla has a pipeline in name, but not in execution. Competitors underscore this contrast. Hyundai launched its Ioniq and Kia EV6 lines on schedule, pairing slick designs with production that met initial demand. Volkswagen's ID series is less flashy, but has arrived reliably, refreshing and expanding its EV lineup year by year. BYD expands even faster, pushing out new models across every segment, from city cars to luxury sedans, without lengthy delays. Tesla's approach, centered on big visionary reveals, leaves it exposed when those visions fail to arrive. Investors and consumers alike now compare not prototypes, but cars that can be purchased today. The financial implications are straightforward. Automakers rely on product cycles to generate excitement, draw new buyers, and sustain margins. Tesla continues to lean heavily on the Model 3 and Model Y, but both are aging. Even after a 2024 refresh, the Model 3 has fallen from second to fourth in California's EV sales rankings. In China and Europe, where competition is fiercest, the appeal of Tesla's core models has steadily eroded as new releases from rivals leap ahead in range, comfort, and price. Without timely new entries, Tesla is forced to extract sales from products that buyers increasingly see as yesterday's technology. Communication strategies only make this problem worse. When legacy automakers push back a launch, they tend to explain the cause: supply bottlenecks, software certification, or staffing needs. Tesla often takes the opposite route, announcing ambitious timelines without specifics, collecting deposits, then pushing dates quietly or removing details entirely, as it did with Cybertruck pricing. Each time that cycle repeats, customer patience thins. What was once forgiven as the turbulence of innovation now fuels skepticism. Depositors and fans begin to doubt not just particular projects, but the credibility of the company itself. The reputational risk is real. Cybertruck was once Tesla's cultural advantage, dominating headlines worldwide. Today, delays and recall issues have turned the same product into a liability, breaking trust with customers and investors alike. If an eye-catching design arrives only after excitement has faded, the result is a vehicle fighting uphill against soured expectations. With Ford's F-150 Lightning, Rivian's pickup, and GM's Silverado EV already on the market, Tesla risks debuting late in a segment its design once promised to revolutionize. Even Tesla's most loyal base is showing signs of strain. Enthusiasts who once defended every missed date now question whether the company is innovating faster than its rivals at all. With Hyundai, Kia, and BYD putting affordable EVs into showrooms, and Volkswagen delivering mainstream family cars on schedule, Tesla's delays make patience a more expensive proposition. Promises of low-cost Teslas someday arrive against the reality of competitors selling them today. If Tesla wants to continue being treated like a technology company, it needs to show the product cadence of one. Tech companies release updates quickly, refresh platforms regularly, and deliver new features on a predictable timeline. Tesla, however, is years behind on commitments while rolling out few brand new designs since the original Model 3 and Model Y. The mismatch between rhetoric and product cycle has become more glaring with each missed date. And as media coverage shifts from breathlessness to skepticism, Tesla sees a narrative it once owned turn against it. What this eroding pipeline makes clear is that Tesla is no longer buoyed by the assumption of inevitability. Customers won't simply wait years while competitors deliver what Tesla promised. Investors won't continue rewarding projections when the track record is a decade of slippages. Step by step, Tesla has allowed its most marketable edge, the perception of being ahead of everyone else, to fade. That leaves a harder reality. When product promises slip, the spotlight shifts to who is making the decisions and whether the company has the leadership discipline to turn vision into execution. Tesla's manufacturing issues and pipeline delays now cut straight into larger questions about accountability. If the cars themselves aren't arriving as planned, investors turn their attention to the boardroom and ask whether oversight is functioning as it should. Governance in question. The question now is not whether Tesla struggles with competition or product timelines, but whether its governance structures are doing what they are supposed to, protecting shareholders. At most companies, the board acts as a check on management, setting rules and ensuring accountability. At Tesla in 2025, that role is far less clear. The decisions of the directors often seem designed not to restrain Elon Musk, but to maintain his dominance, sometimes at direct cost to investor protections. One of the clearest examples is rooted in the Delaware courts. In early 2024, a Delaware judge struck down Musk's massive 2018 compensation package, which had been valued at around $56 billion. The court argued that Tesla's directors failed to negotiate independently, producing an agreement that benefited Musk disproportionately. That award, had it been reinstated, could have exceeded Tesla's cumulative lifetime profits and exposed the company to an estimated accounting charge of $25 to $51 billion. Rather than allow further scrutiny in Delaware's shareholder-friendly court system, Tesla's board chose another path, shifting the company's legal incorporation from Delaware to Texas. For decades, Delaware has served as the preferred home for America's public corporations because of its established legal precedents and its reputation for enforcing shareholder rights. Moving away from Delaware to Texas was not a neutral change. It stripped investors of the ability to rely on the most experienced corporate court system in the country. Texas courts have less history of challenging boards on governance issues, and critics argue that the move makes it significantly harder for shareholders to bring lawsuits over compensation or conflicts of interest. For investors, the reincorporation sends a blunt message. Oversight structures will now operate in a jurisdiction less inclined to test the board's decisions. This legal restructuring came at the same time Tesla's directors approved two enormous new pay awards. First was an interim restricted stock grant of 96 million shares, valued at roughly $29 billion, presented as a replacement for the invalidated 2018 award. Soon after, the board unveiled the proposed 2025 CEO Performance Award, which, if fully earned, could approach $1 trillion across 12 tranches linked to extreme operational milestones and market capitalization thresholds. Though structured around conditions such as putting 20 million vehicles on the road annually or building fleets of Robotaxis, these targets extend decades into the future. Critics note that they may never be measurable in realistic time frames, leaving shareholders exposed to dilution and concentrated voting power, whether or not Tesla's near-term performance improves. Board defenders insist these awards are necessary to keep Musk engaged with Tesla. Yet Musk is already its single largest shareholder, with a personal fortune tied more directly to the company's stock than any comparable CEO in the world. Governance specialists point out that the argument rings hollow. His financial motivation already exceeds industry norms by orders of magnitude. By layering new equity packages on top of that, the board amplifies one figure's control while raising legitimate fears of dilution for ordinary investors. These decisions look even more questionable when considered against insider activity. While retail investors are encouraged to remain patient and think long-term, senior insiders have been selling portions of their holdings. Board chair Robin Denholm, for example, sold over $17 million worth of Tesla shares in 2025. Other directors and executives have trimmed their exposure as well. Insider sales are not unusual in themselves, but in the context of declining deliveries and controversial governance choices, they reinforce the impression of a widening gulf. Those closest to the company's leadership appear to be managing their own risk. At the same moment, they are telling outside investors to wait for distant promises. Concerns extend to board composition itself. Tesla's directors are often described as independent, but many have long-standing financial or personal ties with Musk. True independence is meant to ensure directors can hold management accountable without fear of reprisal or bias. Instead, observers see a group that reflects loyalty more than impartiality. Corporate governance experts describe this as a textbook case of a board tilting toward an individual leader rather than the shareholder base. The Economist captured the broader issue across American companies when it labeled such boards feckless, unwilling to confront charismatic CEOs. Tesla stands as one of the clearest examples. Leadership turnover only deepens the unease. In the past year, at least 15 senior executives across Musk's companies have resigned, including several from Tesla. For an automaker facing contraction in multiple markets, losing experienced leadership risks compounding operational problems. Normally, a strong board would help stabilize management transitions, ensuring no single figure holds unchecked authority. At Tesla, however, the governance structure seems to concentrate power even further when talent leaves. Shareholders are left asking if oversight exists at all beyond Musk's personal judgment. Another layer of risk stems from Musk's increasingly visible political involvement. His public support for Donald Trump and discussions of launching a new political party raise concerns about distraction and reputational spillover for Tesla. Boards in similar circumstances often set clear boundaries, requiring leaders to separate political ventures from company duties. Tesla's directors, by contrast, have made only limited efforts to seek assurances. Musk's continued political activity suggests those assurances carry little weight. For investors, this creates uncertainty. If Tesla's CEO divides his attention across controversial public battles, does the board have either the will or the authority to refocus him? So far, the answer appears to be no. Taken together, these elements underscore a governance structure that raises fundamental questions. Reincorporating in Texas weakens shareholder recourse. Approving record-breaking compensation packages, while sales decline compromises the link between reward and performance. Insider share sales contrast with guidance to ordinary investors, suggesting misaligned incentives. Long-standing ties between directors and Musk blur independence. Leadership turnover remains unaddressed, and political distractions continue without strong guardrails. Each decision on its own might be rationalized. Stacked together, they reveal a pattern where oversight has been replaced by accommodation. For shareholders, the risks are practical, not abstract. Governance is what provides the systems that force accountability when performance falters. Without those systems, companies can drift further from discipline while enriching executives, even as fundamentals weaken. Tesla illustrates this danger clearly. With sales shrinking and competitors gaining ground, the one mechanism that might have demanded corrective action, the board, appears unwilling to challenge its chief executive. That leaves investors exposed not just to market cycles, but to structural imbalances where failure carries no consequences at the top. This is why Tesla's governance challenges matter much more than simple headline controversies. A board that prioritizes loyalty over accountability reduces the company's resilience. Market downturns last longer, mistakes repeat more often, and opportunities slip away as decisions echo the preferences of one leader rather than the long-term interests of all shareholders. For a company valued not just on its cars, but on faith in its future, weakened governance erodes that foundation. It shifts Tesla's profile from a growth company with discipline to a founder-centric enterprise, where investor protections take second place. The questions now facing shareholders are not only about how Tesla competes with BYD or Volkswagen, but whether its own governance culture can deliver the discipline needed to sustain the company through competition at all. If oversight is compromised, even bold strategies risk becoming little more than personal experiments underwritten by public capital. And when oversight is uncertain, another issue looms just as large. How much of Tesla's leadership attention is actually focused on solving the company's challenges? That question, increasingly raised by investors, has fast become one of the most pressing uncertainties surrounding Tesla's future. When Musk's other projects take priority. The question many investors now ask is simple. How much of Tesla's leadership focus does it actually receive in 2025? Musk remains CEO in formal terms, but in practice, his plate is crowded with other ventures. Rockets at SpaceX, brain implants at Neuralink, the social media platform X, and most recently xAI, his artificial intelligence startup. That sheer range of activity has raised doubts about whether Tesla's shareholders receive the level of attention they once assumed, or whether Tesla has become one project among several competing for his time. The launch of xAI sharpened those concerns. Building artificial intelligence at scale demands massive computing power, and NVIDIA's high-end chips are the scarce resource every lab is fighting to acquire. Reports indicate that xAI secured a portion of those chips, even though Tesla itself has ambitious plans for AI development tied to full self-driving and robotics. For stakeholders, the optics are troubling. If Tesla's future depends on AI-driven autonomy, why is its CEO's independent venture securing the very hardware Tesla needs to move forward? While media accounts do not prove improper transfers, the perception of blurred resource lines between Musk's companies has fueled debate over where Tesla sits in his hierarchy of priorities. The concern extends to talent as well. Reports over the last year describe engineering staff shifting across Musk's empire, from Tesla's battery and robotics divisions into efforts at Neuralink, SpaceX, and xAI. That migration might appear natural within a cluster of companies under Musk's vision, but for Tesla it represents a loss in focus. In a period when Tesla is struggling to stabilize key product lines and factories, even the departure of a handful of top engineers can set back projects by months. Industry reporting notes that at least 15 senior executives across Musk's companies resigned in the last 12 months, including leaders from Tesla who were central to battery architecture and humanoid robotics. Each departure chips away at Tesla's ability to execute on its most public promises. Notably, Tesla's board has tried to frame these cross-company movements as strengths. Board chair Robin Denholm stated that Musk's activity across industries actually helps Tesla, the argument being that breakthroughs in rocketry, AI, or neurology could spill over into automotive advances. While plausible in theory, the hard results tell another story. Tesla's sales have contracted, its production lines are behind targets, and its pipeline of new models has slipped repeatedly. Evidence of synergy is thin, evidence of distraction is extensive. Cross-pollination might sound creative, but in practice, it has not yielded measurable gains for Tesla's core business. The matter also touches governance obligations. As the CEO of a public company, Musk has a fiduciary duty to act in the best interests of Tesla's shareholders. If chips or engineering time that Tesla required for its operations instead advance private ventures, even if only perceptually, this could create conflicts of interest. Governance experts note that even the appearance of diversion risks weakening shareholder protections. Tesla's decision to rein corporate in Texas adds a further wrinkle, since it potentially reduces the avenues available for investors to challenge these kinds of issues in court. That change has left investors more exposed at precisely the moment when questions about resource allocation are most pressing. The consequences of divided leadership spill directly into competitiveness. If Tesla is losing market share to BYD, Hyundai, and Volkswagen, how much does it matter whether Musk wakes up thinking about rockets, AI models, or brain implants? The answer is straightforward. Every NVIDIA chip, every engineer diverted elsewhere, is one less asset driving Tesla's vehicle pipeline or its progress on autonomy. Slower development timelines for full self-driving mean fewer subscription opportunities. Delays on affordable EVs mean competitors scoop up first-time buyers. Each shift of focus carries a cost measured not in theory, but in lost sales and declining market share. Comparison with rivals is instructive. Competitors like BYD or Hyundai do not juggle multiple empires. Their leaders devote attention solely to cars and batteries. BYD, in particular, has leveraged this single focus to achieve breakthroughs in battery technology, deploy dozens of new models, and dominate China while expanding abroad. When every executive hour and every engineer is pointed toward ramping EV output, the difference in results is visible. Tesla's leadership structure, split across 5 ambitious ventures, makes consistent output harder to achieve. Tesla has further suffered from high-level churn. The resignation of leaders in batteries, human resources, and robotics does not just slow existing initiatives. It pressures those who remain, raising operational risk. When customers look at mounting recalls, longer service delays, or postponed product launches, they are seeing the downstream effects of weak leadership continuity and distracted oversight. Retention challenges in senior ranks would be difficult enough in a stable environment. Paired with a CEO dividing his time across multiple industries, they multiply into systemic vulnerability. public perception compounds the problem. Tesla is still tightly associated with Musk's personal brand. When headlines highlight his energy being consumed by AI startups or heated political involvement, the impression is that Tesla is not his immediate priority. Customers wonder if their purchase is backed by a leader committed to cars or one more preoccupied with technological side bets. Investors make similar calculations. Where rivals project cost discipline and concentration, Tesla projects ambition spread across rockets, chips, satellites, and cars. The market notices the difference. That diluted focus also influences financial modeling. Markets reward companies with predictable leadership and steady execution. Tesla's story, by contrast, is volatile. Visionary promises on autonomy or robotics, but unclear timelines shifting. Attention and repeated delays. Analysts question whether Tesla can meet its stated goals when its hardest problems do not appear to command Musk's undivided input. And when execution slows, enthusiasm in the stock depends more on Musk's personal narrative than on proven fundamentals. For Tesla, that makes leadership focus not just a management issue, but a valuation risk. Internally, the culture effect is significant. Employees are acutely aware when direction wavers, or when projects are overshadowed by ventures outside their own company. Reports of frustration among teams handling core automotive challenges reflect a sense that Tesla no longer commands the CEO's constant commitment. Morale depends on believing in a mission. If workers perceive Tesla slipping into a background role beneath rockets or AI launches, attrition is likely to accelerate further. In an industry built on exacting timelines and coordination, those morale drops translate directly into missed targets and rising costs. In the broadest sense, Tesla has shifted from being Musk's showcase enterprise to being one of several ongoing experiments. SpaceX breaks records on rocket reusability. xAI captures attention in the AI arms race. Neuralink tests human trials. X absorbs political and social energy. Tesla, the company that once symbolized disruption, now risks becoming something closer to a side project in the eyes of its own leader. Investors and customers alike pick up on that message. For rivals, it represents a competitive opening. This divergence matters precisely because Tesla's strategic environment is more unforgiving than ever. Competitive pressure has intensified, customer loyalty is cracking, and the product pipeline is delayed. In that climate, the difference between leadership focus and leadership distraction can determine whether Tesla regains ground or continues to lose it quarter by quarter. Divided leadership does not deliver multiplied outcomes, it delivers diluted ones. And those diluted results force investors to look harder at the risks Tesla faces, not just from competitors, but from the environments in which it operates. Because leadership attention is only one challenge. Another front is emerging, one that could matter just as much as competition or internal focus. The growing shift in how governments are treating Tesla. Regulatory clouds forming. Regulatory clouds are no longer distant possibilities for Tesla. They are forming directly over its core markets. The company that once thrived on government subsidies and policy tailwinds now encounters lawsuits, shrinking incentives, and regional probes that undermine both its financial stability and public image. These challenges are not abstract. They strike at two of Tesla's most reliable supports over the past decade. Legal flexibility in marketing claims and steady access to subsidies that kept customers buying and earnings afloat. California illustrates the vulnerability. The state's Department of Motor Vehicles has filed suit alleging Tesla misled buyers in advertising its autopilot and full self-driving systems. Regulators argue the company promoted features as if they were truly autonomous, when in reality the technology remains firmly classified as Level 2 driver assistance, requiring constant human oversight. Because California is Tesla's single largest U.S. market and a bellwether for environmental policy nationwide, the stakes could not be higher. An unfavorable outcome might curtail Tesla's ability to market its cars under the same branding, force expensive modifications to sales campaigns, and possibly open the door to punitive fines. It also magnifies ongoing federal scrutiny. Both the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and shareholder lawsuits are challenging Tesla's safety claims and disclosure practices around autonomy. These legal proceedings strike directly at Tesla's credibility in its most advertised technology. Europe brings a parallel pressure set. Regulators there have signaled unease with Tesla's promotional framing of autonomous features, and probes are active in several jurisdictions. Though final rulings have not yet been issued, EU regulatory processes tend to move steadily once reviews begin. For Tesla, even the presence of official inquiries matters. The company has long sold itself to European customers as not just another automaker, but as a software-driven tech company. If European regulators determine that marketing crossed the line into exaggeration, the result could include fines, tighter marketing restrictions, and a reputational loss at a moment when Tesla's market share in Germany, France, and Norway is already sliding. Europe is one of the most policy-sensitive automotive markets in the world, and losing credibility there is more than a public relations problem. It risks long-term erosion of consumer trust. Policy change has also cut deep into Tesla's economics. For much of its history, Tesla depended on powerful incentive structures that reduced prices for buyers and filled gaps in company earnings through regulatory credits. That system is being dismantled. In Germany and France, buyers who once saw national subsidies lower the effective cost of Teslas have been left with fewer or no incentives at all. Not coincidentally, those markets show some of Tesla's steepest year-on-year sales declines. In the US, revisions to the Clean Vehicle Tax Credit narrowed eligibility across models and reduced the actual average subsidy for buyers to around $4,000 per vehicle. Where some customers expected $7,500 in relief, they now receive only partial support, if any. For a brand already priced as a premium option, disappearing incentives create a very direct drag on conversions from interest to purchase. Even more significant is the unraveling of regulatory credit revenue. For years, Tesla turned thin automotive margins into profits by selling credits to rivals that could not yet meet emissions targets. Those payments added billions of dollars across multiple fiscal years, cushioning quarterly earnings. That reliable stream is shrinking as competitors ramp their own EV fleets and governments adjust emissions protocols. In 2024, the International Energy Agency noted that subsidy removals in some European states left the EV market flat for much of the year, while companies like Volkswagen now comply with emissions mandates without buying extra credits from rivals. Without those transfers, Tesla loses an income source that often distinguished its reports from red ink. What was once a safety net has frayed to the point of near disappearance. Tariffs and trade barriers lay additional weight on top of lost incentives. In the US, imported components are subject to tariffs that inflate Tesla's own supply costs, raising per-unit expenses at a time of shrinking demand. In Europe, policymakers are considering countervailing duties on imports from China in response to Beijing's industrial policy. That creates uncertainty for any automaker with Chinese production or supply chains, including Tesla, which relies heavily on its Shanghai factory for export volume. Whether through higher costs, narrower credit availability, or currency exposure, the regional regulatory environment is not neutral for Tesla. It actively cuts into the pricing flexibility Tesla once enjoyed. China highlights how much these dynamics depend on political geography. While Tesla's Western markets peel back subsidy layers, Beijing introduced an aggressive trade-in scheme in 2024 that delivered cash directly to millions of consumers buying new electric cars. Over 6 million applications were accepted, and roughly 60% resulted in a new EV purchase. That single program fueled more than one-third of total EV sales in China that year. The policy not only boosted Chinese competitors like BYD, but underscored Tesla's disadvantage. In its most dependable overseas market, Tesla faces intensified local competition supported by state policy, while in its home and European markets government support shrinks. Rather than leveling the playing field, global policy divergence tilts it decisively toward Tesla's rivals. The irony is unavoidable. No global automaker leaned more on explicit policy support than Tesla. Subsidies, credits, and incentives supplied both a margin boost and a symbolic endorsement that reinforced the brand's futuristic image. Customers believed they were not only buying a car, but aligning with governments actively underwriting progress. Now, as lawsuits, subsidy rollbacks, and trade complexities pile up, that narrative runs in reverse. Tesla resembles not a government partner, but a government defendant, not the clean tech champion to be subsidized, but a litigant facing penalties. Some defenders argue Tesla was never meant to rely on credits in perpetuity, that those revenues were always transitional and not part of the company's core value. But Tesla's own financials undercut that claim. Quarter after quarter, those credits turned otherwise unremarkable earnings reports into headline profits. Without them, the investor story looks weaker at the exact point where sales, product launches, and service satisfaction are all under stress. The credits and subsidies were not just add-ons. They were structural to Tesla's appearance as the market leader. Losing them matters. This is why the regulatory climate now represents more than background noise. The California DMV lawsuit frames Tesla's core technology claims as potentially deceptive. Federal investigations and shareholder suits amplify that risk. European inquiries hint at advertising restrictions and fines. U.S. credit changes make Tesla's pricing less competitive. Europe's subsidy phase-outs coincide with stagnation in EV growth. Meanwhile, China directs state cash to its national champions, disadvantaging Tesla on their home ground. Taken together, these legal and policy shifts remove both political cover and a recurring revenue stream Tesla once relied on to stabilize results. Without that buffer, Tesla enters each reporting period more exposed. Missed sales targets, quality problems, or pipeline delays now weigh more directly on profitability, unshielded by subsidy cushions or steady credit revenue. The financial and reputational risks compound, forcing investors to reconsider whether Tesla retains the insulation that once explained its lofty valuation. And that brings us to an unavoidable tension. When earnings shrink and product promises falter, yet the company's market valuation still trades at extraordinary multiples, the explanation lies not in fundamentals, but in something else entirely. That contrast is where the next part of Tesla's story begins. Has Tesla become a cult stock? If Tesla's revenue growth has flattened, production goals keep slipping, and margins are compressed by pricing pressure, why does its stock still trade at valuations closer to elite technology firms than to fellow automakers? This is what leads analysts to ask the uncomfortable question. Has Tesla become a cult stock, where belief in a vision outweighs the fundamentals of a car business? Deliveries in the first half of 2025 totaled just over 719,000 units, down year over year. Yet Tesla's market cap implies dominance of multiple trillion-dollar industries. With a forward price-to-earnings ratio estimated around 90 to 95 times 2025 earnings, levels usually reserved for high-margin software companies, the disconnect is increasingly hard to ignore. That gap in perception divides investors into two visible camps. On one side are the believers. They look past quarterly reports and instead focus on tomorrow's breakthroughs. Autonomous robotaxis operating at scale, humanoid robots taking over labor, artificial intelligence embedded into Tesla's entire product line. For them, buying the stock is not about current cash flows, but about owning exposure to the world's most ambitious narrative, an ecosystem where vehicles, energy storage, and robotics converge. The delays, rising competition, and production issues do not register as deal breakers because the endgame, if realized, would redefine entire sectors. On the other side stand the skeptics. They point to flat or falling revenues in Tesla's core regions, diminishing regulatory credits, and shrinking margins as price cuts erode profitability. For these investors, the idea that Tesla merits the valuation multiples of a software platform rings hollow. In their view, the stock exemplifies narrative overpowering numbers. A company struggling operationally, but buoyed by hope of future breakthroughs always placed just over the horizon. For them, Tesla looks more like a bubble than a tech pioneer, trading far above what its balance sheet deserves. History shows that markets often embrace belief for years, but Tesla's case is remarkable in scope. Compared directly, Volkswagen and Toyota each produce far more cars, hold broader customer bases, and report steadier earnings, yet Tesla's valuation still towers over both. Believers explain it by claiming Tesla isn't just an automaker. It's a technology company poised to monetize autonomy, AI, and robotics. Critics respond that these promises have circulated for nearly a decade, while essential milestones, like Level 4 autonomy or affordable mass-market EVs, remain unrealized. In this tension, supporters perceive vision and patience, while doubters perceive a bubble sustained by faith. Elon Musk's influence is inseparable from this dynamic. Few CEOs in history have had such immediate sway over investor sentiment. Musk's public comments, tweets, and staged product demos cause billions of dollars in market swings within hours. This is one of the clearest hallmarks of a cult stock. valuation linked not so much to business outcomes as to the persona of its leader. To believers, Musk's confidence and track record at SpaceX demonstrate a proven ability to deliver impossible results. To skeptics, the reliance on his persona over Tesla's measurable performance signals fragility. Tesla's marketing practices reinforce the narrative. Its ongoing promotion of full self-driving is presented as a near-term reality, despite evidence and lawsuits underscoring that the system remains Level 2, requiring human supervision. Prototype demonstrations, like scripted robot showcases or highly produced driving clips, generate bursts of optimism, prolonging belief in the arrival of transformative products. Each promotional cycle creates just enough momentum to overshadow weak quarterly results. This rhythm of hype sustaining valuation is another characteristic of companies treated as narrative plays rather than industrial manufacturers. For analysts, the contradiction sits in the multiples. Tesla depends on factories, capital-intensive assembly, and physical distribution, yet trades as if it delivers the margins and scalability of software. Recalls, supply bottlenecks, and parts shortages are a cost base that traditional tech firms do not face. But Tesla's stock price floats as if it were an AI platform preparing to license code or sell digital subscriptions at limitless margins. The difference lies less in current fundamentals than in interpretation. One story casts Tesla as a carmaker with deteriorating metrics, the other as a tech leader with unlimited upside. Supporters often urge caution against underestimating Tesla. They argue it has disrupted industries before, transforming public skepticism into hindsight embarrassment. They point to the 2012 introduction of the Model S or the Gigafactory rollout as proof that today's doubts may look short-sighted by 2030. Yet skeptics highlight exactly how long major promises remain unmet. The affordable mass-market Model 2 is delayed until late 2025 or later. Robotaxis were promised by 2020 but remain nowhere near regulatory approval. Even the Cybertruck, Tesla's boldest design, is slowed by recalls. Faith in eventual arrival, critics argue, is simply not matched by results at hand. The pattern mirrors past examples of cult stocks. Leadership loyalty overshadows performance metrics, with followers rationalizing setbacks as temporary noise. Negative signals like regulatory lawsuits or production misses are interpreted by believers as obstacles on the way to triumph rather than as warning signs. Tesla's investor community shows these behaviors with intensity. Devotion to Musk, defense of missed timelines, and willingness to suspend concern over fundamentals for the sake of the vision. What makes Tesla unique is how this belief extends beyond the car business into Musk's broader ventures. Reports of xAI securing scarce NVIDIA chips or Neuralink pursuing breakthroughs often reinforce Musk's aura rather than dilute trust in Tesla. Retail investors appear to interpret Musk's activities across industries as signs of genius, rather than as distraction from Tesla's immediate challenges. That conflation, where Musk's personal myth strengthens Tesla's valuation even when the developments occur outside Tesla, shows how the stock identity and the leader identity have become inseparable. This convergence carries risks. If valuation rests on sentiment tethered to Musk, volatility will be extreme. A failed demonstration or prolonged regulatory setback could swing the narrative dramatically, separating stock price from optimism in sudden jolts. The California DMV lawsuit over autopilot marketing and federal safety probes into full self-driving's reliability highlight how fragile that narrative is to credibility shocks. If authorities restrict Tesla's ability to market autonomy in its current form, belief may be tested quickly. The paradox is that Tesla's strongest asset, its narrative, is also its greatest vulnerability. To capture this decision point, consider the question: if you had to choose today, would you place your bet on Tesla's visionary promises, autonomous fleets, humanoid robots, trillion-dollar markets, or on competitors like Toyota or Volkswagen reporting profits now, producing millions of cars annually, and trading at modest valuations? On one hand, Tesla offers exposure to what could be extraordinary breakthroughs. On the other, its first-half 2025 deliveries of 719,000 cars fell year over year, and its valuation remains priced as if breakthroughs are imminent. The contrast is stark, and how an investor interprets it determines how they see Tesla's identity. Many market observers suspect Tesla has already transitioned from being a growth stock into functioning like a cult stock. Growth has slowed, sales are flat, Europe is shrinking, and credit revenue has diminished. Yet loyalty holds, sustained not by deliveries or margins, but by belief in Musk's eventual triumph. For others, that same loyalty adds risk to a portfolio built on fundamentals. Both sides agree that Tesla is not priced like a car company. It is priced like an idea. The actionable consideration for anyone holding Tesla is straightforward. Recognize the distinction between narrative-driven upside and cash flow reality. Tesla's valuation derives less from its immediate earnings and more from faith in distant promises that can deliver spectacular results if breakthroughs arrive, but it also concentrates risk in sentiment and governance rather than steady fundamentals. Investors weighing exposure should consider whether their confidence rests in current numbers or in the durability of belief. As valuation drifts further from operations, Tesla serves as a test of how long belief can outweigh evidence. And that tension between sentiment and reality, between the power of Musk's vision and the truth of today's performance, shapes what comes next. Tesla's immediate challenges are clear. Deliveries are sliding, competitors are pressing, and the board continues to expand executive rewards even as lawsuits mount. Beneath that reality lies the deeper question: whether faith in Elon Musk can still sustain a valuation that many analysts already describe as detached from fundamentals. If you follow Tesla, focus on the data that matters: quarter-on-quarter deliveries, European market share, and any new board decisions on pay. Those three signals reveal far more than headlines. Because at its core, Tesla is now a test of whether investor belief can outlast eroding fundamentals.